Hello, this is Anca Novacovici with Eco-Coach, and happy Friday to you. Today, in the past Facebook Live, I talked about sustainability, the many reasons to implement sustainability at your organization. And so today what I wanted to do was dive into one of them in particular and kind of talk a little bit more about that, and that is regulatory risk. And in terms of, let's kind of take a step back and define what sustainability means, because again, it means a lot of different things to different people. So I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. It means focusing on the triple bottom line of people, planet, and profit. And so what I'm going to talk about here are some common examples of sustainability regulations. So sustainability regulations incorporate environmental regulations as well as other things. And what I wanted to do was to kind of touch upon some of the impacts that, and really in particular, three of the impacts to a business of not actually paying attention to sustainability regulations. And there are a lot of regulations that you think about when if you work in a larger organization and you have an EHS department, an environment, health and safety department, where you kind of talking about toxins, and you have a lot of different potential risks around that. In terms of potential, even as big as criminal charges, but you have higher workers' comp, you can have litigation, things like that, but I'm not going to go into those in detail because that really focuses, you can really go into down a rabbit hole, and there isn't that much time I don't want to spend on that. But what I wanted to focus on were impacts to businesses, common impacts to businesses, and kind of common regulations that a majority of businesses will look at. And so, the first thing is, I think that is obvious, is fines and potential other costs like litigation costs. So when you are looking at, and I'm going to take a really simple example because again, I want to use something that applies across different organizations, and that is recycling. And so recycling is required in a lot of counties, a lot of states, and there are fines for not complying to commercial recycling standards. And so you have cities like New York City that provide, for the first offense, it's $100. For the second offense, it's $400. The third offense, it's $400. And it may not seem like a lot, but if you're a small business, that really, really adds up, right? You have other cities that are going even further. As most of you I'm sure know, California is kind of at the helm of this. So San Francisco is mandating trash sorters if they find that you are not in compliance, and if not, you can face $1,000 fines a day. So that's pretty steep. Now, California, in a lot of instances around sustainability and around the environment, has been leading the way, and then the rest of the country follows partially or fully, in the next 10 or 20 years. So that's definitely something to look into. And then you have other cities like Philadelphia who are identifying the fact that they're losing money by not reinforcing recycling. And so they're losing millions of dollars. And so what they're looking at is, okay, how do I enforce that? At the federal level, enforcement is high, and that's not just for recycling, but kind of for environmental issues, externalities, pollution, spills, things like that. And per the EPA, again, as I've mentioned in past Facebook Lives, I'm not really good with numbers, so I will refer to this information on paper just so I don't butcher anything. But per the EPA, $1.6 billion was collected in administrative and civil judicial penalties in 2017, which is actually higher than any prior year except for 2016, where there was a $5.7 billion action taken, right? So again, there is enforcement around and regulation around environmental related laws, and with the ones that I mentioned with New York and with San Francisco and with Philadelphia, that's particular to recycling, but there are obviously other laws that they have in place around pollution, about putting any sort of toxins into the air, putting toxins into the water. And I definitely would encourage you to look into those laws if you're not aware of them at your state and local, county, town level. And one of the things that I kind of wanted to encourage you when you're looking at this and you're kind of doing the math and thinking, okay, so maybe I'll get a $100 fine for not recycling, but that's just cost of doing business. Well, think about it this way: a lot of the regulations right now are over time going to get more and more stringent. And so if you don't have something in place now, it's going to be that much harder to catch up later on, and it's going to be that much more costly to catch up. And so you're going to have wasted time trying to figure out what's going on, plus those fines on top. So it's definitely something that I would encourage you to kind of think about now and be more preventative instead of reactive. The second thing that is, out of kind of the three major things that I think are pertinent to the impact of not complying with regulations. The second one, the first one obviously is fines and impact to your bottom line, but the second one is lost revenue. Okay, so when you are polluting, let's just say, when you're not doing something that is expected of you, excuse me, by your community, you're losing trust from that community. And so what is happening then is you've taken a lot of time, I'm sure, as a business to build up trust and to build up patrons who come into your business. And if there is a negative impact, for example, let's say you're an automotive shop and you're not recycling the oil properly, and this is obviously an extreme, but you're dumping it into the local waterways, that's going to impact your community. And when people find out about that, they're not going to be too pleased, and they're going to choose to take their business elsewhere. That, coupled with the fact that there are quite a lot of studies that show that individuals are increasingly interested in doing business with organizations that align with their values. And so when you're really looking at that, you're looking at the millennials, for example, excuse me, which is the largest living generation right now, who really care about corporate social responsibility, who care about the actions that organizations are taking. And if they find out that a business in their community is not taking an action that is aligned with their value, they're going to take their business elsewhere. There are quite a few studies around this, actually, and I wanted to share one with you. Again, looking at the numbers so I don't mess anything up, but there's a 2017 Cone study that found that 78% of the people who were surveyed would refuse to purchase a company's products or service upon learning that it supported an issue that was contrary to their beliefs, right? So that's 78%. That's a really big number. So it's not just the millennials, it's kind of other generations. It's the boomers, it's the Gen X, and it's also going to be the Gen Z, which is coming up after the millennials. So once you're looking at something, so I gave the example earlier of an automotive shop, and really the automotive shop, obviously that's not recycling, but hazardous waste is also something, even if you're painting your building, hazardous waste is also something that most businesses have to deal with. And so if you're not taking care of hazardous waste, and that impacts even other businesses around you, that's also going to have an impact on the trust that the community has on you and the trust that the consumers, that your customers place on you. In terms of hazardous waste, there are definitely, if you have just small amounts of hazardous waste, you typically can dispose of those for free. So I would look, check out your county, check out your waste disposal facility and see what they have, because smaller amounts can be disposed of commercially for free as well. And obviously if you're a resident, you can dispose of it at your local site. You would just have to go online and check out when and what have you. And the last thing, the third kind of impact that I wanted to share, the first one I mentioned was cost, kind of an impact on your bottom line. The second was lost revenue, which is an impact of your top line. And closely tied into the lost revenue is branding and kind of tarnishing your brand. Because as you know, image is paramount in today's really, really competitive business economy. And so if you're not complying with local laws, that's something that's going to come out really quickly, right? You have a focus now on environmental justice. You have everyone being on social media. Data is at everyone's fingertips. So even if you're a small organization or a small business and you think you're going to be able to fly under the radar, at some point, if someone finds out, it's going to become public, and that means that it will be readily available to anyone who does a search. And there are a lot of apps like Boycott for larger companies that kind of monitor what they've been doing or done good, and kind of show what they could be doing, what they're not doing correctly. And so you can look up a brand and find out, okay, is there something that they're doing that I don't agree with? And that's also going to happen at the local level through a newspaper, through an environmental books group. So it's not something that you're necessarily exempt from just because you're a smaller business. And that scrutiny is going to grow as the years grow and as there's an increased focus in transparency. So again, with regulatory risk, I urge you, this is kind of an added incentive. I urge you obviously to implement sustainability, and one of the big reasons to do it, one of the many reasons to do it, is because you want to be in compliance with the regulations. Even if the regulations don't seem like they're a big deal, it will still impact, or it could still impact your top and your bottom line and your brand if you're not following them. And I actually go into a little bit more detail on this on a blog on our Eco-Coach homepage, on the blog website on Eco-Coach. So you go to www.eco-coach.com and you can check it out under blogs. I also would urge you, if you're considering sustainability, to just download our sustainability checklist and kind of see where you stand and where you want to go with that. That's also included at the bottom of the blog as well as on our homepage. So that's it for today, and here's to your sustainability success, and have a great rest of the day. Take care.